Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual presser organized by the Philippine Association for the Advancement of Science and Technology. This morning, we're going to be joined by this year's awardees of the PHILAAST Awards. And we are also very honored that we will be joined by DOST Secretary Fortunato T, as well as the Executive Director of the DOST-Philippine Council for Health Research and Development, and the PHILAAST President, Dr. Jaime Montoya. We will also be joined by the Chair for the PHILAAST Awards, Dr. Ray De La Cruz, and of course, we're very happy that our eight PHILAAST awardees for the year are with us this morning. So, again, to welcome to all of you, our dear guests, joining us on the Zoom platform as well as via Facebook Live. Through the PHILAAST Awards, the association aims to recognize researchers in various sciences with outstanding achievements and contributions to science and technology in the past year. I'm Richard Burgos. I'm the director of the DOST Science and Technology Information Institute, and I will be your host for this morning's program. By providing a platform for our awardees to showcase their works and achievements, we do hope that we can contribute to an increase of appreciation of science and technology among the public through this virtual presser. And today also serves as a preview of the upcoming awarding ceremony on September 10, 2021, during the PHILAAST National Meeting. So, before we proceed, may we request everyone to pay attention to your screens for the Philippine National Anthem to be followed by a doxology.
And our solidarity with one another. We pray that today's gathering, made possible by the grace of advancements in technology and social media, becomes successful in its endeavors, so we can offer it back to you as our humble offering to honor you, glorify you, and love you through our deeper connection with everyone. May we find bliss in today's session and become more productive children and co-creators of the earth. This we ask and pray through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you for that prayer, beautiful prayer with which to start today's event. To formally open our virtual presser, we have on the floor the DOST-PCHRD Executive Director, who also happens to be the PHILAAST President. He is the man of the hour, having been thrust into the limelight because of the pandemic and the relevance of his discipline, which is health, research, and development. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Jaime Montoya.
To the Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, Fortunato T. de la Peña, the Philippine Association for the Advancement of Science and Technology, PHILAAST Board of Directors, Dr. Reynaldo Ebora, Dr. Leticia Catriz, Dr. Eva Maria Cuchonco de la Paz, Dr. Corazon Menguito, Dr. Benjamin Austria, Dr. Alvin Colaba, Dr. Reynaldo de la Cruz, Engineer Alex C., Assistant Secretary Diana Ignacio, Attorney Froilan Bagabaldo, Dr. Ida Dalmasio, Ms. Luningning Domingo, and Engineer Lydia Tansinsin. Our PHILAAST awardees for this year, our awards donors and sponsors, our friends from the media. Welcome and good morning to all of you. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Today we are here to introduce the 8 scientists whom we will honor this September 10, the last day of the 70th PHILAAST Convention. Despite the focus of this year's theme, which is enhancing response to current and future pandemics through science, technology, and innovation, we will be celebrating innovators from various scientific fields and across generations. This healthy mix is a testament that it is never too early or too late to make significant contributions to the country in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Seasoned veterans like Dr. Asuncion De Guzman, Dr. Lucille Viabad, Dr. Nina Gloriani, Dr. Lydia Leonardo, and Dr. Guillermo Tavios III began their careers when they were as green as our younger awardees, and their many years of research and their tenure in the academe have borne products which our country benefited from, like Dr. De Guzman's publications linking El Nino with sardine fisheries dynamics, Dr. Gloriani's Leptovax against 4 prevalent leptovirus strains in the Philippines, Dr. Tavios' studies on flood mitigation and water resource system in the Philippines, Dr. Leonardo's continuous work on schistosomiasis and other prevalent parasitic diseases in the country, and Dr. Abad's Carrageenan plant growth promoter, which promises increased crop yield and virus and weather resistance. Meanwhile, innovators like Anthony James Bautista and Dr. Joey Ocon prove the mettle and brilliance of the younger generation despite the challenges they and our country face. Dr. Bautista's telepresence robot and Dr. Ocon's projects on clean energy technologies show us that there are still champions of science and technology in our country, and they are determined to brace the country for the demands and challenges of the future. This morning is an opportune time for the media and the public to learn what science and technology could do for the Filipino people beyond COVID-19. Right here, we have a deep pool of knowledge we could wade in, and so I encourage everyone to engage our awardees and take part in the conversation. I am sure our honorees are eager to share their body of work with everyone, and I hope that you could be one with them and us in our enthusiasm. Once again, thank you everyone for being with us today, and I hope we can encourage more people from the higher education institutions, the government, and the science and technology industry to take part in our upcoming convention on September 8 to 10. Magandang agham po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jimmy, for giving us that brief overview that should make all of us excited to get to know who our winners and awardees are. So before I move forward, I'd like to recognize also the presence of the representatives of our donors and the families behind these donations to the awards. Firstly, we have Engineer Isidro Consunji, President of DM Consunji Incorporated, and he's joined by Lucy Consunji, Christopher Gutianon, Junyu Lac, and Miguel Laperal, and they represent the family behind the David M. Consunji Award for Engineering Research. We also have Dr. Pasita Sara, former Executive Director of PCHRD, who represents the group behind the Gregorio Y. Zara Award for Basic Research, as well as the Gregorio Y. Zara Award for Applied Research. We also have with us Mrs. Maria Esther Foliosco Bautista, who is a member of the Board of Directors of the CL Foliosco Group, behind the Seferino L. Foliosco Award for Product and Process Innovation. Also with us is Mr. Romeo Obsena, representative of Mr. Fernando Malveda, Senior Vice President of Leeds Agricultural Products Corporation, who is supporting the Leeds Agri Award for Agricultural Research. Lastly, we also have with us Dr. Jose Paulo E. Campos, President of the Emilio Aguinaldo College, who represents the force behind Dr. Paulo C. Campos Award for Health Research and the Dr. Lourdes E. Campos Award for Public Health. All right. So also we recognize Emeritus Professor June Purvis, who represents the force behind the Michael Purvis Award for Sustainability Research. Now, I'm sure all of you are looking forward to a fruitful discussion with this year's awardees. Now, before we proceed to the Q&A, let us get to know our 2021 PHILAAST awardees. Let me start with Dr. Adrian Ibanez, the recipient of the Leeds Agri Award for Agricultural Research. And he is distinguished in recognition of his excellent contribution to agriculture as a research administrator, a faculty and researcher in animal parasitology and vector-borne diseases in animals. He has published about 50 papers in international referee journals. And also he's known for the registration of more than 300 accessions of DNA sequences with the National Center for Biotechnological Information and DNA Database of Japan. Currently, he is the Vice President for Research and Development at the Cebu Technological University, and he is an authority on animal parasitology and vector-borne diseases in animals. He is also the director of the Institute of Molecular Parasitology and Vector-Borne Disease in the same university. He received his PhD in veterinary science from the Obihiro University in Japan, and was awarded the best PhD graduate when he finished his degree. His major accomplishment is in research administration, where he served for 7 years. 3 years as administrator of the Veterinary Hospital and 1 year as Dean of Southwestern University. So again, good morning, Dr. Adrian Ibanez. Maybe we have a very few words just to introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning to everyone. I'm very honored to be invited also as one of the panelists and being recognized by PHILAAST for this very prestigious recognition. Good morning to everyone.
Thank you, sir. Our next awardee is Dr. Anthony James Bautista. He's the recipient of the Gregorio Y. Zara Award for Applied Research. And he's recognized for his valuable research project that developed an affordable logistic indoor service assistant telepresence robot, or LISA. And this in response to the call of the times to protect healthcare workers in hospitals from contamination by patients infected by COVID-19. The robot delivers medicine and other items using 4 independently driven mechanism wheels that allow LISA to maneuver in tight spaces in hospitals, and it is controlled by a handheld transmitter sending commands to LISA. Dr. Bautista is an assistant professor of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, University of Santo Tomas, and he also developed agricultural innovations such as the driverless hand tractor for rice farming application in 2017, and the autonomous drone for water quality monitoring in 2017. Good morning, Dr. Anthony James Bautista.
Hello, good morning po. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this award, and I'm very honored to be serving our country. Thank you very much po.
Thank you, Dr. Bautista, and congratulations. Let's get to meet Dr. Asuncion De Guzman, recipient of the Gregorio Y. Zara Award for Basic Research. She's recognized for her valuable studies on marine and lake biodiversity, coral reef ecology, capture fisheries, and marine protected areas management. Also for research on climate change vulnerability of small pelagic fish and the socioeconomic impact of subsistence fisheries. As well, she's recognized for research leadership and academic service in advancing science and technology in Northern Mindanao. Today, she is the Vice President of MSU Naawan Foundation for Science and Technology Development Incorporated, and an independent researcher and consultant under the Gaia Resource and Environmental Consultancy Services in Naawan, Misamis Oriental. She pioneered a comprehensive freshwater fisheries assessment of Lake Mainit and conducted valuable research that contributed to the publication that linked the effects of El Nido Southern Oscillation events to sardine fisheries dynamics. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Asuncion De Guzman. Good morning, Dr. De Guzman.
Hi, good morning. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for honoring me with this award. And I'm happy to be here with everyone. And I would like to take this opportunity in thanking Dr. Pasita Zara and her family for the Dr. Gregorio Y. Zara Award for Basic Research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. De Guzman. Our next honoree and awardee is Dr. Guillermo Tavios III. And he is a recipient of the Michael Purvis Award for his works in 2D hydraulic modeling of floods, dam break, and reservoir sedimentation, as well as optimization of reservoirs, pipe network, and project sequencing and staging of large-scale water systems. Also for his advocacy to link science, policy, and management, and the use of transdisciplinary approach with sustainability science for sustainable water resources development. Today, he is a professor emeritus at the University of the Philippines, Diliman College of Engineering. And his body of work includes flood mitigation studies in Lawag, Pasig Marikina, Pampang, and Cagayan de Oro rivers, and studies on optimizing water allocation from various water sources in the country, such as the Angat Reservoir, the Manila West Zone concession, the Kaliwakanan-Agos River Basin, and groundwater sources of Batangas, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, Pampanga, Pangasinan, Tarlac, Metro Manila, and Metro Cebu. Good morning, Dr. Tavios.
Good morning, Director Richard. Thank you very much. Of course, I'm very honored for this award. So congratulations also to all the other awardees. So we'll get later on to the Q&A anyway, so we'll talk some more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tavios. Our fifth honoree is Dr. Joey Ocon, recipient of the David M. Consunji Award for Engineering Research. And this is in recognition of his research excellence in the fields of chemical, energy, and environmental engineering. A foremost expert on energy storage, he has contributed immensely in the development of novel materials and processes for clean energy technologies, including how these technologies are applied at the system level. Today, he is assistant professor at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and has been the project leader of 16 research projects in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and has secured more than 390 million pesos in research funding. He has received multiple awards, locally and internationally, including the National Academy of Science and Technology Outstanding Young Scientist Award in 2015, the UP Outstanding Engineering Research Award in 2016 and 2020, and the President's Young Scientist Award of the Association of Academies and Societies in Asia in 2019. Good morning, Dr. Ocon.
Good morning po, Director Richard. I would like to give thanks to DOST, to SecBoy, PHILAAST, Dr. Montoya, and the stalwarts of the organization for the recognition. Let me have the opportunity also to acknowledge the family of the late Secretary David Consunji for sponsoring the PHILAAST Engineering Research Award. It is widely known that the family is the family of Secretary Consunji. They are gracious donors to UP, and they're active partners of the college. And today they are represented by Ma'am Lucy, Christopher, June, and Miguel. It's coincidental that I'm sitting in front of a computer now in a DMCI condo in Pasig, and I'm proud DMCI condo owner. Thank you, Director Richard.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ocon. Our number 6 honoree is Dr. Lucille Viabad. She is the recipient of the Seferino Hoyosco Award for Product and Process Innovation. And she is recognized for taking the lead in the development of the award-winning Carrageenan Plant Growth Promoter, a novel product of radiation research that serves as an environment-friendly foliar fertilizer that has improved the productivity of farmlands across the country and contributed towards the Philippines' thrust towards rice self-sufficiency. She is a scientist at the Department of Science and Technology, Philippine Nuclear Research Institute, and an advocate of peaceful use of nuclear technology. Good morning, Dr. Abad.
Good morning po sa lahat. And this is I'm very much honored to be given this award, especially coming from such a prestigious association such as PHILAAST. And I would like also to take this opportunity to thank my sponsor for this award, the family of the late Seferino Hoyosco. Salamat sa lahat.
Thank you, Dr. Abad. We now go to our 7th honoree and awardee, Dr. Lydia R. Leonardo, and she is the recipient of the Lourdes Campos Award for Public Health. In recognition for her tireless research work and advocacies towards the control, prevention, and elimination of neglected tropical diseases such as schistosomiasis, foodborne helminthiasis, soil-transmitted helminthiasis, and other parasitic infections. Currently, Dr. Leonardo is a professor emeritus of the University of the Philippines, Manila, and current president of the Society of Parasitology. She has provided guidance and research assistance to global organizations and programs such as the World Health Organization's Strategic and Technical Advisory Group for Neglected Tropical Diseases and the National Schistosomiasis Control Program in China. Good morning, Dr. Leonardo.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Director Burgos, for that very generous introduction. It is my honor and pleasure to receive this very prestigious PHILAAST Lourdes Campos Award for public health. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Pablo Campos, who is also representing Dr. Lourdes Campos for sponsoring this award. Thank you very much for this recognition.
Thank you and congratulations, Dr. Leonardo. Lastly, but definitely not the least, we have Dr. Nina Gloriani. She is the recipient of the Paulo Campos Award for Health Research. And this is in recognition for her landmark studies on the epidemiology, diagnosis, and development of vaccines for several infectious disease agents, such as hepatitis A, B, C, and E, HIV, herpes, Antan virus, and leptospirosis that provided the basis for subsequent scientific work in these fields. She is the chair of the COVID-19 Vaccine Expert Panel of the DOST and National Certification Committee for Poliomyelitis Eradication of the Philippines and member of the World Health Organization Steering Committee for the COVID-19 Solidarity Vaccine Trials. She developed Leptovax vaccine with her team under the LEPCON program. Leptovax works against 4 leptospirase serogroups or serovars prevalent in the Philippines. She is also a DOST-PCHRD Best Mentor Awardee in 2019. Good morning, Dr. Gloriani.
Yes, good morning, Director Burgos, and thank you very much to all of you. Thank you, DOST Secretary de la Peña, PCHRD Executive Director and PHILAAST President, Dr. Jamie Montoya, and the rest of the PHILAAST family. I would also like to thank the Dr. Paulo Campos' family. We've had also a long history with the Campos family before. And thank you most of all. I shared this award, this prestigious award, with the researchers and groups, faculty, students who worked with me all these years. Thank you very much, po, and good morning.
All right, that was Dr. Nina Gloriani. You have met, ladies and gentlemen, our 8 honorees for this year's PHILAAST Awards. Now, I am sure we're all looking forward to our other guests for the open forum. Okay, they will be on a panel, and for those of you on the Zoom platform, you can actually key in your questions at the chat box or the Q&A box, rather. All right. And for those of you following us on Facebook Live, you can also key in your questions there, and our monitors will forward to me your questions. Now, given the available time, we should be able to respond to them briefly. Now, we have our panelists, and I request them to turn on their video so we can duly acknowledge them. We have with us this morning the DOST Secretary himself, Secretary Fortunato Boy de la Peña. Good morning, sir. We also have with us DOST PCHRD Executive Director and the PHILAAST President, Dr. Jaime Montoya.
Yes, good morning. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. And congratulations to all the awardees.
Yes, the Gregorio Y. Zara Awardee for Applied Research, Dr. Anthony James Bautista. The Gregorio Y. Zara Awardee for Basic Research, Dr. Asuncion De Guzman. The Seferino Foliosco Awardee for Product and Process Innovation, Dr. Lucille Viabad. The Dr. Paulo Campos Awardee for Health Research, Dr. Nina Gloriani. the Lourdes Campos awardee for Public Health, Dr. Lydia Leonardo. We also have with us the David Consunji awardee for Engineering Research, Dr. Joey Ocon. The Michael R.I. Purvis awardee for Sustainability Research, Dr. Guillermo Tavios III. Leeds Agri awardee for Agricultural Research, Dr. Adrian Ibanez. There, if you look at them, aren't they a formidable team, okay, for science and technology in the Philippines? So we, again, congratulate them for the honors that they are receiving, but also we want to thank them for the service and dedication and commitment that they have displayed to pursue and promote science and technology in our country. Before we proceed to the questions prior to our virtual presser, we gathered advanced questions from our media attendees, which we will be addressing first, followed by the live questions from our Zoom and Facebook attendees. Feel free to continue dropping your questions through the Zoom Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen or through the Facebook comment section, and we will try to address as many questions as time allows us to. All right? Okay, first question is directed to Dr. Jaime Montoya. And the question is, what is PHILAAST and what are its goals as an association? Dr. Montoya.
Okay, maraming salamat, Director Richard. Hindi ako awardee today. But anyway, iklian ko lang, no? At kailangan na pag-usapan natin itong talagang napakagagaling at pinagmamalaki nating mga awardees sa PHILAAST. Ang PHILAAST po is a non-profit private organization composed of people who continually promote science, technology, and innovation. We are actually joined by members from the academe, from industry, from the non-governmental organizations, and also other groups that are dedicated to the promotion of science, technology, and innovation in the country. Medyo ang focus po natin is really human resource development because of our strong links with the academe. So we want the young people to pursue careers in science, technology, and innovation because we really feel and think that STI or science, technology, innovation will be the fuel and the engine for national growth and development in the country. So yun po at again, salamat po sa ating mga donors at mga benefactors na patuloy ang kumpiyansa sa aming asosasyon para po ating ipagpatuloy ang pagtaguyod sa agham, teknolohiya at inobasyon, mga developments, discoveries sa ating bansa. Yun lang po. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jimmy, and thank you for extending a welcoming hand, especially to the youth of the country, to really pursue science and technology. Now, the second question is directed to Secretary Fortunato de la Peña. Sec Boy, ano nakakatulong ang PHILAAST sa mandate ng DOST? Private sector po sila, and DOST is public sector.
Napaka-importante na mag-collaborate ang public sector at ang private sector para sa promotion ng science and technology. Nakita naman natin yan sa halos lahat ng mga developed and developing countries na nagtutulong ang kanilang gobyerno at ang samahan na nagpo-promote ng science and technology. Kaya dito ay nare-reflect din ang mga ideya at ang mga vision ng nagagaling sa private sector at sa lahat ng sektor ng ating buhay. Kaya kailangan ang kolaborasyon ng gobyerno at ng isang private sector organization para sa advocacy for science and technology. Salamat.
Thank you, Sec Boy. Talaga naman, we really appreciate the efforts of the private sector to support the government's initiatives recognizing outstanding work in science and technology in the country. Now, next question is for Dr. Adrian Ibanez. Why did you choose the field of agriculture, and how important is it to invest research efforts in veterinary science? Dr. Ibanez.
Yeah, thank you, Paulette. I'd like also to thank, before anything else, the sponsor, also Lead Agri, for this award, and the PHILAAST also, and the lahat po ng sponsors. So, good morning. So, to answer that, agriculture remains to be one of the driving forces of our country, and we've seen it as one of very critical areas where we need, especially on the area of food production and food security. So, can I get the second question, Paulette? Why do we need to invest?
We need to invest on our research efforts in veterinary science?
Thank you very much, Paul. Veterinary science would look into the health and security of our animals, and food production remains to be among the priority to ensure that our nation is also well fed. We are hoping that we are going to have a sustainable production, and hopefully, if we do have enough production in dito po sa animal po, then we could be able to hopefully have enough supply and not rely so much on imports. So thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you very much. And the next question is for Dr. Guillermo Tavios III. What are the applications of your studies in the optimization of water sources, especially the ones around the NCR, the National Capital Region?
Yes, if you think about water resources for, say, water supply, like Metro Manila, or even flood control, it's really evolutionary in nature. We're not only looking at short-term events or short-term effects like typhoons, but if you look at long-term needs, if you look at population increase over the next 100 years, when you look at climate change, or you look at even land use changes, all of these are affected by so many factors. Physical, yes, climate, yes, but even socio-economic population comes in. So it's quite important to, how do you properly stage, sequence your projects such that you meet the increasing demand, let's say, of water, as well as you have timing, you have time your investments. Money don't come in one shot, in one time. They come like in several years. So in that case, you really have to optimize how you would stage projects, how you time it your investments, how you look at the evolutionary nature of nature, which because of climate change, land use changes, and even socio-economic changes. So you need a lot of optimization, in the sense that in optimization, if you have only one solution or no solution, there is no optimization problem. But if you have 2, 3, or more, then it becomes an optimization problem. How to select the best solution in time and in space. There's a lot of computations for that matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tavios. Now, the next question can be responded to by any one of our awardees, and hopefully somebody who feels the most about the question, okay, can take the first crack at the answer. Ang tanong po, ang question po ay binigay ni Noli Liwanag of PMI News, at ang tanong po niya, paano po ninyo makukumbinsi ang mga kabataan na pasukin ang pagiging scientist? All right, so anybody who feels very strongly can take the first crack at the answer. How can you convince the youth to engage in science and technology and become a scientist?
Dr. Burgos?
Yes.
I'd like to recommend Dr. Leonardo, because she's actually one of my inspiration, and she inspired me actually to push forward with research. So Dr. Leonardo, I think, one of the best that
really?
will answer me.
And then Dr. Tavios after Dr. Leonardo.
Okay.
All right. So,
Thank you
Leonardo.
very much, Adrian, for that compliment. Really, I think the only way that one of the ways by which we can inspire or convince people to go into science is like just what Adrian is saying, like being a model to them, showing them how to do it, showing them how hard work can really bring out results and bring out benefits that would really help. Like for example, in my case, public health, that would be the community. I know, Adrian, that we were together and you have seen how, even in spite of my age, we would go out in the field, like really go house to house and then visit snail areas. Tapos yung mga snail areas na yan, ang hirap-hirap puntahan, ang tataas, aakyat, tapos bababa, tapos madudulas-dulas ka pa. And I think if you're an investigator, you just really have to be a model to all of them. Show them how to do it and not just do it from the comforts of your office and just order them around and just give them instructions. You just have to be there and be an example to all of them. Tama ba, Adrian? Naging ganyan ba ako sa'yo? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Leonardo, I think Dr. Tavios is raised.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got actually what is that full of things about it. But anyway, I always think that in our field in particular, you make decisions or policies in like a hierarchical basis where you start with the physics of the process, and then when you then transcend to the environmental appreciation of that, emotional, socio-economic, and maybe the last one would be political. Although in the Philippines, maybe it's the other way around. We have the politics that dictates right away what we want to do as far as planning development of our water resource systems or any other system for that matter, socio-economic system. So I think when you do policies or make management decisions, it's very important to really be based on science and technology. And I think that's one of the things that our youth should really appreciate that. In other words, if there is no foundation, that's why I'm talking about an apex kind of thing, the science-based data, technology, analysis, whatever you call it. So if you look at everyday process, children, when you go out, when you're young, you play in the streams, you go out in the forest, there is a lot of physics related that you can observe. And I think that's one of the things that if you appreciate that and to be able to contribute to the society as far as sustaining the earth for that matter, sustaining how you really make your policies and decisions, I think the children or our youth, if they appreciate that, a lot of them will get into science, that's what I'm saying. In the hierarchy of things, maybe politics and socioeconomic will be in the higher hierarchy, but then you need to have the science behind that. But of course, social sciences or even economics is a lot of social science behind it. So it has to be founded by good science, not necessarily physical or natural sciences, but social sciences that matter.
Thank you
So
very
that's
much.
how I will look at it.
Director Burgos, may I still add something?
All right, go ahead.
Dr. De Guzman. Okay,
Followed by
I would agree with Dr. Leonardo and Dr. Tavios. You know, the nurture of our students and how to bring them into science. There's a good deal of practical or practicum aspect to it. I remember I am a marine biologist and also an environmental scientist. And the most interesting part of all my courses before was because I was famous for bringing students on far-flung field trips. And it is during these field trips that they develop the, you know, aside from the lakbay aral, suroy-suroy kung sa mga Cebuano pa, no? Yung gala-gala lang, they develop there the interest. And when they see their faculty also, you know, barefoot scientists din, tutulong din sa gather ng data, hindi lang yung nasa tabi lang, you know, that excites them and that somehow inspires them. And of course, I know that all of us here who are awardees, ang laki ng ating naging inspiration doon sa ating mga students who we taught. And many of them are now faculty members and researchers themselves. So in addition to that, we can package science and research as a very good career path for everyone. And we know that academe is one of the best employer, you know, in the country today. And a lot of them needs to develop that particular skill in order to, you know, progress, just like what we have been doing and are still doing. Like ako, just like many of you, retired na rin ako, I early retired, but I still do research, and that is seen by my former students. So yun, the inspiration has to be continuous. Thank you.
Dr. De Guzman, Dr. Abad.
Okay, the question is so interesting.
Yes.
I'm not an academic.
Please.
Contact with lots of students, especially when I give lectures. And one thing which I realized is that they are not attracted to simply to researchers who are simply in their tables, writing papers, publishing documents, so and so forth. That does not attract the student. The only way you can attract them is to be in their shoes. Ano ba ngayon ang mga kabataan? Ano bang interest ngayon sa kabataan? Dapat doon tayo papasok. And one of this, it should be interesting enough. Yung trabaho nyo, interesting enough. Secondly, I have to be practical. Talagang isip ng mga bata ngayon, how much will it give me in terms of kapirahan? Now, for the first side, I would say, in my lectures, normally I don't talk about the very, technicalities, yung mga masyadong technical. So what I show them are pictures of practical things, what mga inventions, what are the researches, the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute, and I usually relate it to what is happening in the country. Like, saan yan paggagamitan? Like, for example, my invention, which I have been awarded now, is the plant growth promoter. So, pinapakita ko sa kanila na ito is coming from a researcher, coming from a scientist, and yet we are able to translate it in terms of how it is useful for the country. Doon, namamangha sila, and it is encouraging them. Now, secondly, siyempre, iniisip nila, ay teacher o kaya researcher, walang kaperahan yan. You have to show them, may kaperahan din sa research. Why? Because you create inventions. And in these inventions, siyempre, may kaperahan yan in terms of your copyright, in terms of yung mga nakukuha mo, especially with the DOST ngayon, na may royalty pay ka. So therefore, you should also present this, the other side, na hindi lang about work, but also you can gather as much as a certain amount from being a researcher. So yun lang po. Thank you.
Dr. Abad, thank you very much. So kailangan practical at saka kailangan pag-usapan.
Inspiring.
Dr. Ocon, his hand first, and then that will be followed by Dr. Batista.
Thank you, Director Richard. I think I'd like to speak as the youngest member of the panel, and baka kasama pa ako sa mga millennials. And I'm working a lot with young people in the past 5 years at hanggang ngayon marami kami ni-mentor na MS and PhD students, and yung nabanggit po kanina na having a role model on how you can create a professional career from student hanggang sa maging researcher, yung young researchers natin will be great. Hands-on mentoring is also important. You have to expose them to the challenges of doing science and research, from the proposal submission to implementation of projects on problems related to procurement in the country, and up to yung research dissemination, yung writing papers and presenting conferences. We have to motivate our youth kasi yun talaga yung doon nanggagaling yung energy and yung passion nila, no, na ituloy yung career to becoming a scientist despite the challenges of that we have in the country. And I guess DOST is also trying to come up with more opportunities for employment for our science graduates. And yeah, nabanggit din po yung presenting not just the professional side but also the financial aspect, no? So I've been doing that a lot with my mentees na you have to show them that you will earn, you will not get rich, but of course you'll have a comfortable life as a science professional in the country. Yun lang po.
Thank you, Dr. Ocon. So it's a promise of, an enjoyable life ahead as scientists. I think the greatest payback is your opportunity to contribute to the common good. Next is Dr. Bautista.
Hello, good morning. Good morning po. Bilang researcher sa area ng agricultural robotics and service robots, kadalasan po ng mga kasama ko sa research ay mga kabataan. So, ang napansin kong nagmo-motivate sa kanila ay unang-una ay yung maging involved sila sa project from the conceptualizing stage hanggang sa implementation stage. And nakita ko rin na isang effective way na maging involved ang mga bata or mga kabataan natin is number 2 ay magkaroon sila ng room to bring out their creativity. So sa area ng robotics kasi napakahalaga na maggawa sila ng sarili nilang mga equipment, ng robot, silang mag-isip ng mga components nila. So in that way, nagkakaroon sila ng total involvement. And then after that, isa ring mahalagang napansin ko na nagiging interesado ang mga estudyante, yung mga kabataan natin, ay pag nakikita nila yung mga sarili nilang outputs na napapakinabangan ng society. So tingin ko yun ang isa sa pwedeng maging area ng pagkuha natin ng interest ng mga kabataan sa research and science. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bautista. So getting the young people involved in project conceptualization, proposal preparation, and implementation, and having a clear arena for contribution, for creativity, etc. I think that's really great. Dr. Gloriani, I think, raised her hand.
I also come from the academe, and it is my greatest pleasure to be with students and engaging them in research. You know, yung from mga lectures lang, and then thinking of projects to engage them into the project itself, no? So ano pa yung pwede ko sabihin? Hindi naman ako mayaman, no? But I am very comfortable. Well, what can I say? We have to provide them incentives and provide them opportunities for especially travel. Alam nyo, pag yung mga projects ninyo ay na-accept sa mga publications or sa fora, you get to travel. And in fact, if your mentor is good enough, the mentor will actually take you to these travels. So meron pong mga ganong incentives for them. And we have to allow them to grow and to sustain their interest in the science to all of these mga opportunities for them. Yun po. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gloriani. Okay, so travel, it can be an incentive. Yeah. Especially now that the young can have like a little extra money and they are out of where they are. They really want to travel.
Basta mga paper ko, sabi nila parang nag-delete lahat. Imposible namang, ito, ayaw lumabas yung mga papel ko.
So even in the pandemic, people are already making plans to travel, especially among the youth. So I think we have heard quite a number of very inspiring stories, and coming from modeling, showing people, the young people, how to do it, how it's done, in the field work, etc., etc. My thing is,
Richard.
Oh, yes, sir.
Nakita mo naman na yung mga teacher ang inspirasyon ng mga estudyante. Kaya dapat pag-usayin natin ang programa para mapahusay ang mga teachers. Okay? So yan ang paghukulan namin ng pansin. Kasi yan talaga ang nag-i-inspire sa estudyante, yung mga teachers. Kaya kailangan magagaling yung teachers. Thank you.
Tama po yun, sir. I think nobody will argue against that. Teachers, the best teachers are, kumbaga, hardwired into our memory. And they're the ones that really has to choose science careers. Diba? Okay, so for those in academe, and many of our awardees are in academe, it's okay, it's easier, I think, because you already handle a group of people who are already inclined to pursue science and technology careers. But I think the other question is, how do we reach out to those who may not have opportunities to go into the College of Science and Technology to pursue these courses? I mean, how about those who just want to sing and dance or just become I mean, you know, they can also consider careers in science and technology. Maybe we'll have a little time to spend on this, because the greater majority of our youth are in fields other than science and technology, and maybe we should reach out to them. Any comments on this?
Can I get a first?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Director Richard. Yeah, I think in the citation you saw where, you know, the importance nowadays, especially if you look at large scale in water resource systems in particular. We're talking large scale systems. So you need transdisciplinary approach. So with that, you really need to involve, it encompasses, again, physical sciences, social sciences, political sciences. You cannot plan, even I think Dr. De Guzman from, I think I met you way back then, plan a marine resource. It takes livelihood, it takes people, it takes, you know, children even appreciating your Dolomite beaches. Anyway, the point is that it's really a compendium of so many things. So if you can look at it from that point of view, anyone can do science for that matter. And I think, like, if that's the case, even in transfer approach, very important public participation. How you can do that when you do planning, you really have to involve the stakeholders. You have to maybe iterate with them. This is what we're gonna do from a scientific point of view. These are our objectives. We have to do this. From a political point of view, we have to be, you know, like the mayors and so on, and even the civil society in particular. They have to appreciate the science behind this, the development behind this, and so on. And I think if we involve almost everyone, for that matter, in a public participatory transdisciplinary approach, then we can really, you know, get them, you know, involved in the process of how we plan, how we develop things. A marine resource, a water resource, a chemical system, and so on, manufacturing. And I think it's high time to really be cognizant of all the different disciplines, all the different concerns and people. Otherwise, you cannot plan things that I am just a water resource engineer for that matter. I have to look at the flora, fauna, and everything. So that's how I would think. Like, it's beyond our the academe, beyond the classroom, you know, and so on.
True, Dr. Tavios. Yes, so really public participation, ano, huh? So, Dr. Guzman, did you want to comment something?
May I? Thank you, Dr. Tavios, for mentioning transdisciplinary research, because more and more recently, there are groups of us who are now into developing proposals, okay, for example, either for DOST funding or for others, that requires multidisciplinary participation. And oftentimes, the impact that's being looked for in these proposals are talaga naka-base dun sa community, ano yung public good value. So here, you have a marine biologist, for example, you have an environmental scientist, you have an economist, you have a social sociologist, and then policy, pwede mo yung pagsamahin sa isang team. And then you conduct the research in a transdisciplinary manner so that mas holistic and
Yes.
then na-maximize yung participation. So it's no longer, well, I know that we have our individual focus and individual interest, but ngayon, if you really want broader and bigger impact, particularly kung policy talaga ang gusto nating i-drive at, no? So, for example, I've been doing this very simple grassroots research on reef greening, and this is on invertebrates. It's a chronic activity you see in the coast every day, no? Involving coastal communities natin, but actually there is a big room for research there. And the overall goal there is to manage these resources. Kung wala kayong basic research na gagawin, wala kang data to support driving at policy para ma-manage mo yung mga resources na yun and sustain the benefits that are that are available not only for coastal communities but also for even as far as export, because ang marine invertebrates natin are important exports as well. So there's this economic, there is this nutritional, there is this social benefits all rolled into one if you have a multidisciplinary team to do transdisciplinary research. Yun lang siguro ang ma-share ko about that.
Thank you, Dr. De Guzman. There was a study that showed, I think a few years ago, that showed that scientists believe that they should be communicating science.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
science communication.
10% actually do it. So I think that's a startling statistic. All right. So coming from a point of conviction to a point of action, diba? Now, the landscape for communications has changed. And as influencers, scientists can actually do something personal, which is to go on social media, for example, powerful influencers themselves, rather than waiting for other people to do it. Now, can anybody share a good experience and initiatives that they have taken to become social media influencers? Because this is the best way to reach out to the greater majority of our youth.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, first, Dr. Bautista. I'll give way to Dr. Bautista, and I'd like to say something about that.
Opo, sa part naman po namin na gumagawa ng mga agricultural robotics and service robots, isa sa mga initiatives namin talaga ay maging ma-promote ang robotics sa mga kabataan and maging available ito sa bawat lahat ng interesado sa robotics. Kasi napansin namin na pag sinabi mong robotics, kailangan komplikado ito, mahal, or hindi siya available. So sa team namin sa area ng robotics ay gumawa kami ng website which is available sa lahat ng interesado sa robotics. Ang website na ito ay philrobotics.com. So dito lahat ng mga technology involving robotics, from simple to complicated robotics lectures ay nilagay namin doon ng libre. At siyempre lahat ng kabataang interesado, Filipino youth na interesado sa robotics ay talagang maiintindihan ito sa tingin namin dahil nilahad namin ang lahat ng lectures sa wikang Filipino. So kasi gusto rin naming ipahatid sa lahat na ang robotics ay talagang ang lengguwahe nating Filipino ay napakagandang kombinasyon sa robotics. So sana bisitahin niyo po yung philrobotics.com na ginawa namin para sa kabataan na interesado sa robotics. Salamat po.
Dr. Bautista, that's a really good and concrete way to reach out to a specific audience segment among the youth who may be interested in robotics. Dr. Abad and then Dr. De Guzman.
Yeah, okay. Balik ako sa sagot, hindi doon tong sa social media. Because the question is, kung wala pa sa science, how can we attract the youth towards gaining more interest in science? So ngayon, ang concern ko is not so much people who are already in college, wherein they already have chosen already their path in science, or even for that matter, yung nasa STEM na, so nasa grades 11 and 12, kasi na medyo leaning towards science. So I guess what is important, yung target talaga, especially for teachers. Hindi ako teacher. Pero I think what is should be targeted are more on students who are in grades 9 and 10. Kasi ito yung tipong decision making kung saan ano ang gusto nila. And I would like to get the one of Anthony kasi teaching science and making these people be interested in science is you have to show them what is practical science. Hindi lang yung tipong kasi marami kasi sa mga teachers, I mean, sorry about that, in some cases siguro, na memorization ang science. So, kumbaga, nung bata pa tayo, medyo ano na ako, mini-memorize natin, may mga flashcards tayo, 6x7 sa mathematics, or even science is just a matter of memorization. So I think malaki ang role ng teachers dito sa growing children, I would say, na i-develop na talaga ang sense of science, na hindi lang doon sa memorized science, but the practical side of it. Yun lang po.
Thank you, Dr. Abad. Very pointed comment. Thank Dr. De Guzman.
Yes, yung question nyo kanina, Director Burgos, just reminded me na isa palang kung matatawag natin advantage din, no? That a serendipitous na nangyari because of this COVID pandemic was there's a good deal of yung social media activity that allows scientists to communicate. For example, there's been a lot of scientific webinars, no? May mga associations that sponsor that. We have an association, Philippine Association of Marine Science. We did a series of webinars since 2020. And you can see, aabot ng sometimes 1,000 or more yung mga nag-view. And there, science in different fields, okay, naipakita doon sa broader audience compared to before, yung napaparticipate ng mga scientific conference, yung mga mga scientists lang talaga or researchers. So now we have, like for example, last week lang, I was invited to participate in the Kamada Manamo, if you're familiar with that. The Manamo is Marine and Archipelagic Nations Awareness Month, which is September. And there's this webinar. Most of their viewers were from the PNP. I couldn't believe it. I mean, because this youth group pala, ay nakalink din sila doon sa campaign using the youth to campaign against anti-droga. So the PNP was very interested in participating sa lahat ng mga webinars sila. So we're reaching farther and farther and bigger and bigger using social media. So it's an opportunity, you know, that I think everybody has been involved in during this pandemic. So may opportunity din tayo kahit scientist na magiging social media influencer din in a sense.
Thank you, Dr. De Guzman. Very well. Now, here's a question, and I think it's also related to the earlier discussion. And the comment is, I would like to ask the awardees that during the pandemic, students in the Philippines are not able to go to school and have face-to-face classes. As scientists, what kind of impact do you think does this have on science education in the Philippines? And should face-to-face classes be resumed? Anybody can respond to the question.
May I respond to that, sir?
All right, go ahead.
No. I've been sort of involved in some evaluations of some projects, especially those that will require face-to-face. Ito nga, laboratory. Science is a lot of laboratory. But academia, I don't know, what other research institutions have come up with yung sort of parang hybrid na education. So, in fact, the seminars, parang nagiging lecture type siya, and then some laboratory sessions that could be done at home. Ito po hindi yung mga BSL-2 ha, yung mga BSL-1 na yung mga hindi masyadong pathogenic na organisms or even yung mga usual lang that we deal with. And we've seen a lot of innovation being done at the academic level para po mabigyan ng experience ng mga bata natin. Of course, it's much better to do it hands on, no? Pero we have to deal with the pandemic, so there are many other ways to think of actually also expanding their minds and their horizons. May mga virtual tours din po yung mga research institutions, and I'm very happy that a lot of these research institutions have come up with such mga innovations. So yun po.
Thank you, Dr. Gloriani. Dr. Leonardo is raising her.
I think yung pandemic talaga napaka-stressful at napaka-limiting, especially sa pag-handle ng laboratory. Not so much the lecture kasi medyo madali yung lecture. And in terms of the laboratory, I would really like to commend especially our the members, the junior members of our team in really exerting so much effort in handling their laboratories in such a way that pupunta talaga sila sa laboratory. Tapos ire-record nila one by one yung mga, for example, how to dissect a frog. So talagang ire-record nila yon, or may camera sila sa harap, tapos ipapakita nila yon. Tapos pati yung pag-examine ng mga specimens under the microscope. So it would really entail effort talaga, big effort, tapos novel ways by which you can really reach out to your students. Of course, maraming pwedeng panoorin sa YouTube, but nothing beats the demonstration of the actual teacher. Yung talagang nakikita nila, ayan, teacher nila, pinapakita kung paano mag-dissect, kung paano ma-examine ang mga specimens under the microscope, and so on. And for this, I would really like to commend the younger faculty who would really go out of their way. So talagang pupunta sila sa laboratory. Of course, they would do it with a partner. Merong yung partner nila ang kumukuha ng video for them to demonstrate these different procedures.
Thank you, Dr. Leonardo. And it's true, no? The pandemic has put in place a number of restrictions, but the restrictions can create opportunities to become more, work around them, because we can still get many things done despite.
Yes.
And we're seeing that across different institutions, how they are organizing classes. They have reduced them to small batches that can come into laboratory in specific times and be responsible for the time that they are there. No? So I think the pandemic is teaching us many things, thinking out of the box. Hindi po ba? And I think that is a very important aspect of being a scientist, thinking out of the box. All right.
Can I say something?
All right.
Oo, kasi I interviewed isang taga-Science High kasi how is it now during the pandemic? Siyempre, mostly virtual ang ginagawa nila. And one of the positive things that they mentioned is na-enhance yung creativity ng mga bata. Because you're only there to give some instructions on how to do things. However, sa practical side, yung mga bata na ang gumagawa mismo. So without the teacher, so therefore, I think the positive side here is that meron tayo, ang creativity niya na-enhance, plus the fact, naging independent ang mga bata. Kasi pag nasa school, it's always guided by the teachers. However, ngayon kasi solo na sila sa bahay na gagawin nila. At the same time, ang reasoning nila masyadong na-develop. Yun ang nakikita ko yung advantage ngayon with the current virtual classrooms.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Abad. Here's a question that is directed to Dr. Montoya, and I think we can spend a little time this. From Roland Valencia. What is the initial step to become a member of PHILAAST? Dr. Montoya?
Thank you very much for that question. Of course, we welcome Meron po tayo mga application form na kung maibibigay niyo po sa amin na we can actually send you the membership form at yan po ay ipaprocess natin. Of course, may konting fee po na babayaran kasi po tayo naman private, hindi naman po tayo kumukuha ng subsidy from any agency or group. So para po kayo ay maging miyembro. Salamat po. Kung pwede ibigay lang sa akin sa chat yung inyo pong email para po mapadala namin sa inyo. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Montoya. Ayan, wala ka nang kawala. Roland Valencia. This is your opportunity to become a member of PHILAAST, and you are most welcome. Now, the next question is directed to Dr. Tavios, and it comes from Nora Gamolo, one of our media friends. And she is asking, what can be done, number one, to clean our water resources? And number two, can we do something to remedy or mitigate the effects of climate change on our water resources? Dr. Tavios?
Hello, yeah. Now, I think as far as cleaning our water resources, it's really it takes a village, so to speak. Para bang, if you're talking about the water sources in a watershed, the reason why it becomes polluted because maybe your land use practices, agriculture, or even yung tatapon mo yung garbage mo, indiscriminate disposal of yung mga oil products and all those pollutants pale will really, pollute or degrade our water resources. And again, I mentioned earlier na it takes yung disciplinary approach because like for example in Metro Manila, a lot of the pollution really comes from household. Tinatapon lang doon. Our mga mga auto shops, tinatapon na mga paints, tinatapon lang doon sa Imbornal o doon sa mga sa daan ang gano'n and so on. So you can do like water treatment as far as drinking water, but those are technology based na like our water districts or our water concessions. But if you talk about cleaning our water resource in a general sense, I think it takes the entire community for that matter. I'm not talking about community from the point of view of like the local folks lang, but rather the government, the individuals, the professionals, and so on. Now, on the second question, I think talking about climate change, one of the things that's really more urgent as far as our water resources being impacted by climate change, it's more of the hydrologic variability of climate change. You have a shifting, they always say na we have more extremes, high extremes and low extremes. We have higher mga floods, frequency of floods or frequency of droughts. So you're talking about variability. So I always advocate, by the way, a lot of people don't like you really have to have storage facilities or reservoirs for that matter. During the wet season, you have plenty of water. You don't need to store. You can use it up. But during the dry season, because of the much more extreme droughts, extreme dry, periods or low flows, then you have to have storage, which is you store water during the wet season for the use. And then the reservoirs may not be necessarily surface reservoirs. You can have groundwater reservoirs, aquifers, where you then feed it from areas where you have a lot of opportunity, previous areas mag-infiltrate into the groundwater reservoirs and then pick it up from there. But as far as when I think what is meant by mitigating climate change, that's a different story to mitigate, but I'm talking about mitigation measures as far as being able to minimize yung mga deficits, shortages, or even when you talk about conservation of water, That's where the reservoirs come in. But when you talk about effects on yung floods and so on, of course, that's a different story. But in any case, there are measures. So it's a matter, again, of looking at how do you time, because climate change may be happening now, but to what extent, then you really have, again, to time with your investments. Definitely, when you build a reservoir, surface reservoir, that's a lot of investment. But maybe in the end, in the future, we have no choice but to have those reservoirs. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tavios. Yes, so water resource conservation is everybody's concern. We live on water, we subsist because we have water intake, and we need good sources of water. But addressing conservation, etc., requires not just an LGU population, but an entire ecosystem to support our water resources. So thank you for that. Now, here is a question that can be responded to by any one of our awardees. Okay, from Teodoro Herbosa on Zoom. He is saying, what are your thoughts on preventing the brain drain of young Filipino scientists? If you became the DOST secretary, how would you solve the problem? Yes, anyone can raise your hand and respond to this question. We have a little time left. Yes, Dr. Abad.
Okay, so I'm from the DOST, so more or less, I think the current Secretary de la Peña, together with the USECGAV, have been giving a push towards this para hindi masyadong brain drain. Because one of the issues ng brain drain is that they study abroad, then they have nothing when they come back.
Yeah.
So practically, that's the role that we have to exert more effort in creating more jobs for these people. Like, for instance, meron tayong mga programa na sinasabing CIPs. CIPs ay yung mga graduates ng scholarship of DOST wherein they can be incorporated within the different institutions para hindi sila mag-iisip na magstay na lang doon kasi wala silang kapirahan. Then we have also programs such as the Balik Scientist na pinopromote ngayon ng Department of Science and Technology wherein malaki ito. Kasi like for example, it can be short-term or long-term wherein whatever they get abroad, they can also get it here. So somehow, yung iba na short-term lang, pwede bang bumalik sa abroad, but the longer term, baka sakali na after certain period, they would be interested to stay here in the Philippines. So that's how we entice people para hindi pupunta sa abroad. It's a matter of creating more jobs for these people, I think. Otherwise, kung walang job, talagang lalayas yan sa Pilipinas.
Thank you, Dr. Yes, Dr. De Guzman.
I'd like to say something that's a little political, but having been in the academe, no longer there, but observing a lot of what's still happening is usually ang problem with returning scientists na magagaling, no? Fresh from their PhDs with so much credentials, I related to promotion. For example, when they left the university to go abroad and study, they were probably instructor level. Pagbalik nila, many times, I'm not saying that this happens in all universities, but a lot of our state universities and colleges have very stringent promotion scheme na it takes years and years, even a returning PhD to reach a certain level of rank na ano naman sila, maganda naman yung output nila, but there's this somehow delay talaga, no? I mean, with the exception probably of UP, kasi ibang system ng UP, and maybe even MSU, because MSU and UP, they have charter, individual charters. But many, if you take a look around, many SUCs, ang tagal bago ang promotion can be granted. And I have seen a lot of really accomplished people na nasa, medyo edad ko lang at the time, hindi pa sila umaabot dun sa professor level, nasa associate pa lang. And I was wondering why, because they're well published, they have a lot of researches and credentials wise, but it's really the system. And I know that this is no longer DOST purview, but maybe at the level of national government, maybe there's a need to review this promotion scheme para maging more fair at incentive, no? Incentivizing the system so that hindi na babalik sa abroad yung bago lang bumalik. And there are certain examples I can cite, which I will not cite here, na Harvard graduate, pagbalik niya, hindi pa siya ma-promote. So, mga ganon. So, may offer abroad, good offer, naturally, they will leave. So, isa yon, dagdag ko lang doon sa kay Dr. Abad.
Thank you, Dr. De Guzman. So you would rather not become a DOST secretary, you want to become
Ched.
Thank you very much.
Baka Chedless. Sorry, Dr. Dr. Popoy de Vera.
Yeah.
But I think there's a need to review the system.
Yeah, I'm a product of the DOST scholarship program. I was a scholar, RX 7687, without which I would not have been able to take my degree or receive my degree from UP as engineering. And then when I was a PhD student also, I was a scholar by the DOST RDT fellowship. And I think very important po yung nabanggit kanina na we need more opportunities for employment. SecBoy is doing a lot of effort to establish nga yung Virology Institute of the Philippines. I think we need more institutes, not just in the health sectors, in energy, in environmental studies. Kasi meron pong limitations yung ecosystem sa universities. For instance, in UP, we have very limited full-time positions for researchers na hindi talaga sila faculty din. In the College of Engineering, sobrang konti lang po na aming full-time researchers. So most of our manpower are coming from project-based researchers. After po mag-end yung project, so they have to find employment somewhere else, and most of them will go to universities abroad to take their PhDs at may hirapan na po tayong bumalik. So I hope with passing and sana may pasa nga yung Science for Change Bill with the budget na makukuha ng DOST, we can establish more institutes and more research centers, not just in Metro Manila, but yung ginagawa nga po ng DOST na mga nicer centers in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ocon. Yes, we pray with you that the Science for Change Bill will become law very soon. Thank you. Now, here is a question for Dr. Leonardo. Parasitic diseases like schistosomiasis aren't widely known in the Philippines, yet it remains a problem in the country. How can we spread awareness about these diseases to the public? And how can the public assist or aid those who are trying to eliminate or control these diseases?
Yeah.
Leonardo?
In fairness, whereas before, schistosomiasis was really like a raging disease in the Philippines. So that when you talk about schistosomiasis, you think about Mindanao and you think about Leyte and Samar, where there are a lot of people with bloated abdomens and suffering from schistosomiasis. But because of the efforts of the Department of Health, particularly on the mass drug administration, there has been a lot of progress, so that many of these endemic areas, the prevalence has actually been brought down to very low levels. But we also all understand, and I think everyone is aware that the disease cannot be eliminated only by mass drug administration or just by the use of drugs. There has to be other interventions infections because schistosomiasis is actually a multifaceted disease. There's an effect of the environment, the effect of people, the behavior of people, and of course, there are animals, for example, livestock like carabaos, that are also infected. So that even if you treat all the people in the endemic area, for as long as there are still infected animals, then there will still be sources of infection. So I think what the government is now doing is looking at this multifaceted nature of the disease and adapting an approach that will not only treat schistosomiasis as a medical problem, but a public health problem, also a socio-cultural problem, a problem that involves behavior of people. So that looking at the problem also from a veterinary perspective, because there are animals that are involved in the transmission of the disease. So it's actually a community effort to be able to eliminate schistosomiasis. So you have to involve the community. You have to involve the Department of Education, so that children and even the parents will be educated about the transmission of the disease. You also have to educate the farmers, because farmers with their livestock, like for example the carabaos, they contribute to the transmission of the disease. And then of course the government, so that there will be input of all the necessary support, so the drugs and the manpower that will be involved in the control of the disease. And then of course also people are involved in water development projects, because schistosomiasis involves snail intermediate hosts that inhabit water bodies. So if you continue to have water development projects that, like for example, there would be irrigation canals and dams, and that these irrigation canals would actually create habitats for the snails. Then it's not just economic progress that you're addressing, but also you're actually creating habitats for the snail intermediate host that will eventually perpetuate the transmission of the disease. So I think what's happening now is that there's a better awareness of schistosomiasis, so that the entire community and many agencies of the government are now being involved. It's not just the Department of Health, but also the Department of Education, the Department of Public Highways and Public Works and Highways, in terms of the development of dams and development and water development projects. Also, Department of Agriculture, because animals or livestock and the farmers are very much involved in the transmission of the disease. So I think that's how it is. And the only way to eliminate the disease is like, it has to be like the efforts of the community and efforts of various agencies of the government, and not just leave the Department of Health to leave the efforts or leave the work to the Department of Health.
Thank you, Dr. Leonardo. Very well said in a short period of time, but also very comprehensive. So this problem or this challenge requires really a more systematic approach for its management and eventual elimination. So we can educate the children, we can educate the farmers, but the challenge will remain because we cannot educate the carabaos. Yeah. Levity aside. Yeah. Levity aside, here's a question from Nicolas Gordo on Zoom. And he is saying, in our recent experience with the pandemic, people become more acutely aware about epidemiology, diagnostics, treatment and control and prevention measures, vaccine development, data analytics and predictions, and the various socioeconomic applications. His question, will there be a renaissance of science, technology, and innovation? And what do you think we could have done better to fare better by merging science policy and implementation. That's a very, very thought-provoking position. So anyone can respond to that before we close our Q&A portion?
Hello po.
Yes, Dr. Gloriani.
I thought I'd respond to that. Well, the SARS-2 virus is a virus like no other. You know, the challenges for science and technology especially had to be addressed. And truly, yun nga, first is diagnostics because you have to detect that you have it. And then therapeutics to treat those who are infected, and vaccines. So dito sa vaccine development, ito nga yung actually I saw a question there about boosters. Hindi ko naman sasagutin fully po yun, but just to say that the answers to all your questions are all science-based. So why are we getting boosters, a third dose, or a dose with a second generation? These are all based on the science and technology, the advances that we've had, no? So, grabe, no? But of course, we have to consider other issues like socioeconomic and equity, but we start with science. So, yun po. So, it's a very, very big challenge for all of us. When we thought we were already controlling the virus, dumating ang variants. Then how do we actually use now science to understand what these variants are doing? How are they evolving? So lahat po yan science-based. So we are looking forward to siguro better responses in the future. The whole world was actually caught by surprise. Kahit sabihin, some of the richer countries were relatively prepared for pandemic or epidemic responses, we were caught really parang flat-footed, so to speak, dito sa virus na to. So even the best of the best still have unanswered questions. Up to now, we continue to monitor what's going on, but let me assure everyone that we're doing it science-based. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gloriani. I think the discussions has really made people more aware of science and appreciate its role in addressing health issues, for example, and other issues confronting society. So we have seen that even scientific terminology, RT-PCR, becoming part of the language of people because it's so relevant, you know, to the times now. All right. Is there anybody else who would like to offer a position? Right, Dr. Ibanez, yes.
Yes, this pandemic really showed how important it is to collaborate, and the epidemiology, that all the reports have pointed that all of us should really work together because while we think of it probably mainly as a research concern, but it actually affected all sectors of our country together. And hopefully, sa isa pong sambayan ng Filipino, together with all the great minds po sa atin, magtulong-tulong po tayo to really help out in really solving because it really affects all fields of science, not to a specific lang po. So thank you po and good morning.
Thank you, Dr. Ibanez. I think the question here can be rephrased as follows. After the pandemic, what do you think as an awardee of PHILAAST? Will there be more scientists? Will there be more lawyers? Will there be more military people? What do you think? Yes, Dr. Tavios.
Yeah, there's an interesting model by a certain Professor Holling, I think, of Canada, the panarchy model, which is related to evolutionary resilience. Now, the usual resilience, we talk about engineer resilience or even ecological resilience, is the ability to how fast we go back to the normal. But definitely in the evolutionary resilience, you don't go back to the same state or equilibria. You go to a different level of new normal, so to speak, where the tendency is that during, when we become complacent or when we become, stable, we become like normal, we become complacent. It seems like, oh, business as usual and so on. But when there is a big crisis or adverse event, then we go to the system collapse. And the tendency for us, we become creative. We become innovative and so on. And I think after this pandemic, and in fact, during this time, we already see a lot of innovations, even in digital ecosystems of technology, how we do teaching, how we raise food, etc., and so on, how we do work, a lot of innovations that's happening already. So in other words, when there is a system collapse, we have a crisis, it's an opportunity. There's a window of opportunity to innovate, to be creative. And I think that's how we should think about resilience. And I think we are learning this, what we call the panarchy model of adaptive change or evolutionary resilience. And definitely, I think, as you mentioned earlier, that there will be a renaissance of science, technology, innovation. I think so. Definitely, we have this window of opportunity to innovate, because there definitely is no longer, we're not going back to the old normal or the same normal, but it's a new normal. And the tendency for people actually, and in fact, if you look at the histories of breakthroughs in scientific revolutions, it really underwent some crisis. Like, for example, even in the histories, and then the next time they get out of that crisis, they are different people, different science, different technology, different creations and innovations. So I think people are in that level of resilience. They are evolutionary resilient people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tavios. I think you hit it on the head, and the nail is in. Okay, pandemic to endemic, and we are really looking forward to evolutionary resilience. We adapt to change, and we become better. Will there be more scientists? I don't know, but there will be better scientists because
better people.
Thank you very much to all our awardees. I think it has been a very, very pleasant and productive conversation with them. Nakita nyo naman kung gaano nag-iisip yung ating mga awardees. They are really worth their silence, right? So, and you see, they provide us different perspectives on any issue, for example, so that we have a better understanding of what is happening and what are the solutions that may be available out there to respond to challenges, all right? So we hope that this session has also sparked in all of us a better appreciation in careers in science and technology and what our professional scientists can do to contribute to the national welfare, all right? So we'd like to call next to give a message to our awardees, the shepherd of our S&T efforts in the country, who has shown very steadfast support to PHILAAST. Let's call on the DOST Secretary and former PHILAAST President, our very own Secretary Fortunato Boy de la Peña. Sir.
Salamat, Director Richard. Nag-decide akong baguhin na yung aking speech, hindi na yung naka-prepare. Kasi ang dami nang napag-usapan, kaya ako yung magpapasalamat na lang unang-una sa mga donors ng ating awards, unang-una diyan for the last hindi ko alam kung 40 years na yata ang Sara Awards. Nag-umpisa ang pamilya ni Dr. Gregorio Sara sa mga awards ng PHILAAST, both for the basic and applied research. And steadfastly, they have supported our awarding ng PHILAAST up to today. And I'm very thankful to the Sara family, represented by Dr. Pasita Sara, who never fails to attend our awarding programs. I also would like to thank the other donors. Actually, after the Sara Award, the next one to whom we approached to give an award was Leeds Agri from Los Baños, the group of Mr. Malveda, an alumnus of UP Los Baños, started donating or shouldering the, the prize for the Leeds Award. And after that, we had, of course, Dr. Chichoy Campos, the president of the Emilio Aguinaldo College. So nilakasan ko ang loob ko na sabihin kay Dr. Chichoy na mag-create tayo ng award in honor of Dr. Paulo Campos for medical research. And later on, he volunteered that he will also create or help us create an award for her late mother, Dr. Lourdes Espiritu Campos, for the award on public health. I would also like to thank, of course, the family of DM Consunhi. Again, I wrote the family through Sid Consunhi, and I'm happy that the rest of the family have been very supportive. Today we have Lucy Consunhi, and of course the rest of the family, even the third generation Consunhis have been very supportive. So thank you very much. And let's not forget the recently created awards. We have the Michael Purvis Award, which was through the efforts of our LaSalle group here, because Mr. Purvis had served as a distinct professor at De La Salle University, and I am happy that the son has been attending and monitoring what we are doing about the Michael Purvis Award. And lastly, of course, we have the award in the name of the late DOST Secretary Severino Poliosco, which is an award for product and process innovation. Very apt for the kind of advocacy of Secretary Poliosco during his lifetime. And we are thankful to the family. Maret Poliosco Bautista has always been active in our process and has been monitoring these things in behalf of the family. So I would like to thank them. And of course, I would like to congratulate all the awardees, Dr. Adrian Ibanez, Dr. Anthony James Bautista, Dr. Asuncion De Guzman, Dr. Glenn Tavios, Dr. Joey Ocon, Dr. Lucille Viabad, Dr. Lydia Leonardo, and Dr. Nina Gloriani. Okay, so just to maybe give you an observation on the profile. Okay, we have one awardee from Central Technological University in Cebu. We have an awardee from the University of Santo Tomas. We have an awardee from MSU Naawan, although she is now retired and leading the foundation there. We have an awardee from the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute, our own at DOST. And we have awardees from UP Diliman, Dr. Tavios and Dr. Ocon, and from UP Manila, Dr. Leonardo and Dr. Nina Gloriani. Finally, I would like to thank the PHILAAST organizers, the leadership of PHILAAST, led by Dr. Jaime Montoya, the president of the Philippine Association for the Advancement of Science and Technology, and the board of directors, namely Dr. Reynaldo Ebora, Dr. Leticia Catriz, Dr. Eva Maria Pochonco de la Paz, Dr. Corazon Menguito, Dr. Benjamin Ausia, Dr. Alvin Culaba, Dr. Reynaldo de la Cruz, Engineer Alexi, Dr. Diana Ignacio, Attorney Froilan Bagabaldo, Dr. Ida Dalmasio, Ms. Duningning Domingo, and Engineer Edgar Garcia, and also to our board of advisors, the former presidents Ponciano Halos, Fortunato Sevilla III, and Lydia Tansinsin. And of course, I really express my appreciation for the continued collaboration between PHILAAST and our department in advocating for the promotion of science and technology and innovation. PHILAAST does not get any funds from government. It's all sariling kayod ng PHILAAST, and we are happy that the private sector, particularly the families who have been involved in science and technology through their family, shall we say, patriarchs or matriarchs, have been very supportive. So ituloy lang po natin at we invite everyone to join in the forthcoming regional conferences of PHILAAST and of course the national conference on this year, which is the platinum year of PHILAAST, the 70th year, having been established in 1951. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat and congratulations again to our awardees. We are very proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your passion, especially pagdating sa PHILAAST. We know that you have been a constant influence and inspiration in promoting science and technology. In fact, yung Science for the People, ang initials po niyan, SFTP, Secretary Fortunato T de la Peña. All right, so whatever science does, it must redound to the benefit of our people. So to give us a message, all right, and to wrap up our event, let's welcome an expert in the tree nutrition and soil microbiology, the PHILAAST Awards Committee Chair, Dr. Ray De La Cruz. Dr. Ray.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to bring this activity to a close. Thank you very much, Secretary Fortunato de la Peña. Thank you, Dr. Montoya, our President. Thank you, all donors and our sponsors. Dr. Secretary de la Peña had already mentioned them. And then, of course, thank you very much to all the awardees for being present. And remember that we will have the formal awarding ceremony on September 10 in the afternoon. Also, thank you very much to all the members of the press for all the questions that you have asked. And of course, sa mga member ng Board of Directors of PHILAAST for your continued support to us, and all the members of the awards committee. You have done a marvelous job in selecting our awardees this year. And of course, sa PCHRD Communication Group, who really did their job very well during this virtual presser, marami pong salamat sa inyo. Salamat po, and mabuhay tayong lahat. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. De La Cruz. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Well, before we go, we'd like to ask our panelists to, again, open their cameras for a virtual photo opportunity. While we do that, I'd like to really thank our donors for making possible these awards. All right, and congratulations once more to the awardees. Personal note, I'd like to challenge them to help us create impactful stories, because that's what we do at STII. No? But we do create stories that change people's lives. And we want to take stories to the greater public that will tell about what you, our awardees, are doing in your personal capacities. Influence, to expand boundaries of your influence and get more and more people to engage. Especially, we are very interested to find out if you are already an influencer on social media, because we can become an amplifier of your efforts. So thank you very much. Right. So are we taking photos now?
Okay po, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay na po. Thank you.
Thank you. So at the Department of Science and Technology, Science
Thank you very much.
Information,
Thank you.
We really want
Thank
to
you very much po.
sense
Thank you and congratulations to all.
Congratulations sa lahat.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, Nina. Nice to see you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Richard.
everyone.
Thank
And
you very
Adrian,
much,
nice
Director
to
Thank you
Richard,
very much.
to our
Director
very
Richard,
gracious
STI
MC.